hey, Remco was asking me, do I just go or are you going to introduce me? I know that a couple of speakers were like, yeah, just going. I'm like, cool, I'm just going to sit here and watch. Hey, everyone, welcome back to another session. And, what's funny is that Remco is with a company called Inside It, exactly the company that Zapier, our previous speaker, not Zapier, Zapier, our previous
Happier makes
speaker,
you happier.
exactly,
Yeah.
they're using. I wish I could have claimed that, this is something that I've planned, but I hadn't. This just happened. So amazing to have you here, Remco. And we're going to talk about a scale problem in the SaaS
Yes.
CX.
Yes. Awesome.
Awesome. Take it away.
Thank you. Then let's go. Thank you, first of all, everyone, for having me here and joining in for the session. So today we're going to be talking about the scale problem in SaaS and CX. It's a subject that I like speaking about in general because scale is often usually characterized by fast growth. And basically, as a SaaS company, you need to scale. This is something you need to achieve. These are metrics that you need to hit. But no one ever talks about the dark side of scaling and what that actually does to your business and your employees and processes breaking and things catching on fire. So I thought, I'll just do that and I'll give you this lighthearted talk about the scale problem in SaaS and CX, but then also what you can actually do and solve it through a digital CX and customer success lens. Yeah, like I said, thank you for having me. A little bit about myself. So I'm with Inside It. As mentioned, Zapier is using us as well. I also put Zapier's logo on there. It's like I planned this, but I didn't. Basically, we're a community vendor that focuses specifically on SaaS, B2B SaaS and subscription-based companies. So I've put a bunch of customers on this slide. You can see them. I don't have to call them out. But basically, we work with their customer-facing teams and their customer success teams, customer marketing teams to build a community and help them reach their community goals. I joined Inside It in 2018. After I bought my first Inside It community in 2012, I was working for a large telco that actually bought Inside It as their community as well. And I joined them to build an inbound strategy that they at that point didn't have. And I also really knew nothing about. I came from a B2C background. So I thought, okay, this B2B thing, how hard can it be, right? I'll just do that and I'll just go in. And that was a little bit harder than I was expecting. But now I'm in a comfortable position where we're inbound only and it's going very well. So I'm super happy. If you guys know me from LinkedIn, you'll definitely have seen that I pretend to know a lot about customer success, total imposter syndrome there. But I'm having a lot of fun with it. We're working with 100 plus SaaS brands. And the funny fact about me, besides my two gorgeous children on the sheet and my bad hair day there, is that I would have actually preferred to be a pastry chef. I don't know. But you end up in SaaS, even if you want to be a pastry chef. So that's like the circle of life for you or something like that. Okay, let's get into the story. And if we're talking about scale, our story has to start with growth, right? Because basically scaling a company in SaaS terms, even if you don't know a lot about SaaS, means growing your company usually and growing it at lightning speeds, going 10x every year, those kinds of things. Isn't that great, right? I've put a little emoji there. It's not always great. And I'm going to try and explain to you why it isn't and why you should also be mindful of how you scale and how you grow. And I'm going to do that in a funny way. And I'm hoping that you'll indulge me. But I'm going to explain to you how we do these things and why scaling can also be bad through comparing company growth to marriage, which I hope I have spelled correctly. Anyway, it's logical. It will be logical. Trust me, I'm going to take you through this, but at least I'm going to take you through a few stages of scale and then also what you'll be doing and what you'll be faced with. And then hopefully I can explain to you why this is the scale problem. Getting in there, first phase, or if you're married, you'll remember this, your honeymoon period. And if you translate that to company growth, it basically means early stage growth. So what this means is your company is still small. You have your first few customers, definitely sub 100, probably around 10. You probably have one person that's responsible for CS or CX or support, if any. It's probably maybe even someone that has multiple hats and serves multiple hats. You're super reactive. You still can be super reactive because you have very little customers and you basically have the time to be reactive and then also be proactive about certain things. You're looking for product market fit and you have no budget at all for anything. So you're just basically dealing with the stuff that comes your way. We call this the first customers phase, or at least the basic support phase. What you'll be doing from a CS support or CX perspective is building a website, having like email flows, product specialist that helps you out on every call because they still can, because the customer numbers are so low, and you'll probably have an internal FAQ somewhere or something. Honeymoon period, because everything is still okay. It's calm. You're fine. You're happy, I guess. You're having fun. Then your company actually starts growing. When you compare that to marriage, basically, that's the point where you realize that you're actually married. And that means in business terms that you start increasing pace on new customer acquisition. So basically, you go to the some customers phase. There's more customers coming in and you actually need to deal with more and more incoming requests. So your organization starts changing a little. You're getting dedicated support reps. You suddenly need to think about process, right? Which you didn't have to. Now you need to think about process versus chaos. You basically need to make sure that everything's aligned. Product is actually now less involved in individual customer cases. I joked that the barrier is being built because obviously customer success product, CX product, whatever customer facing role and product, difficult relationship sometimes. And you start needing ticketing, you start having SLAs, basically building out your first sort of CX, CS support stack with a bunch of tools like Slack and Zendesk, those kinds of things. It's still not too bad, but you're already starting to feel that you're actually speeding up and your workload is increasing. And then we get to the third phase, which means you actually start getting a lot of feedback about your relationship from your significant other, right? The person that you're married to. So in business terms, this means you struggle to basically keep up with company growth. And I use the word linearly here because I kind of like the picture that paints. So basically what that means is your company's growing 10x, but you already are struggling to grow your team 10x as well to basically be able to deal with the influx of customers at the same pace in the same way. And this is where your company actually starts changing a lot more. This is where you basically get bigger and dedicated CS and CX teams. One-on-one support already needs to transition into one-to-many for certain things. CS, as always, wants to be proactive now because they need to increase time to value as to not have like churn issues or support requests or there's those kinds of things along the line. Product is just completely ignoring you now because they're super busy building out the product and you're building out these Excel files or whatever tool you have to basically get them feature requests. But they're super busy and they don't know when to pick up which and how. You're onboarding, educating, basically narrowly focused on an ICP, those kinds of things. And also, if you're talking about company scale, or at least growing your team to be able to deal with that scale, you no longer can do that through just hiring people. So if you walk up to your CFO and you're saying, look, I have 10 people now, but I need an 11th, they basically get pissed because it costs too much money. It's no longer scalable, if you will. So this is the phase where you have a lot of customers and you need to focus on efficiency and self-service. So I've mentioned a couple of things there, but this is where like customer-driven knowledge bases, education, in-product support, communities, those kinds of things start getting involved. And then if you're lucky, and this is what we all want in SaaS, obviously, you even grow faster. And that's when some things about your significant other start to really annoy you, like the person that you're married to. You start discovering things that actually, break or something. So efficiency and scale is now required to stop things from breaking. You have customers all over the place. You basically need to scale at large, which means customers are piling in. You need dedicated CS tooling. You need all process to be defined, but also those processes need to be ready. They need to be elastic, right? They need to be ready to scale with you. They can't break anymore. If we're talking about your CFO, he now basically laughs in your face when you request more FTE, right? He's like, please be more efficient, but I can't give you more headcount. Onboarding starts to hurt. Support starts to hurt. Productivity is extinct. Customers notice that you're busy. And I've put notice between quotation marks there because it can be a good or a bad thing, I guess. And you start thinking about segmentation to actually be able to focus on the right customers in the right time, or at least segment your team to focus on certain customer segments or those kinds of things. So this is basically the end goal from a growth perspective. but also the most difficult thing when it comes to CX, support, customer success, those kinds of things to keep up with. This is basically the dark side of growth. And that's what we call the scale problem. And it's universal. So basically what VCs keep telling you, that you need to go 10x and that it's amazing and that you can get more money and it will be even more amazing. Obviously, yeah, that's true. That's the case. But also you need to deal with a whole range of phases that your company will go through that will actually break things and break your teams and break your spirit at certain points, unless you've actually made sure that you're able to deal with those well. So to outline the problem, companies plan for growth, but they don't plan for anything else. So I'm a meme person. I tried making memes very quickly. So if they're not funny, I apologize. But at least meaning we're hitting our growth targets, but CS and CX and support are basically on fire. That doesn't matter because we're hitting our growth targets. Or like CS, CX, and support are drowning. Fine, here's an extra FTE since you care so much. But that extra FTE actually doesn't help anymore, right? Because you can't actually hire the amount of people that you would need if you would just have people. Or even worse, efficiency. So what you see in CS, for example, often is that people will then start debating whether or not your CSMs are handling enough customers. So they start having these educated guesses based on ARR or workload or a rising star CSM in the organization and whatever quota that person is carrying, to start calculating what everyone should be carrying. And then can we add another account? Can we add another million? Definitely not recommendable, but at least part of the skill problem there. And that problem needs to be solved at some point for every company. And in order to solve that problem, basically you need a transition in customer success and CX. So where most companies are super internal focused, internal workflows, employees, efficiency, basically scaling that side of the business, you need to move to a model where you do that as well, but you also start empowering your customers and making sure that your customers can do more stuff themselves and actually help you scale and help other customers and share best practices and those kinds of things. This transition, which you may be thinking right now, is not new. I just think we're super slow in B2B. So yeah, another meme. I apologize, but remember self-service, right? I think even in 2012, and Forrester, I think over the years a couple of times, people have been saying that customers want self-service. They need self-service. They don't want to call your company for every single thing or call your CSM for every single thing. They want to be able to do stuff themselves. And basically your product should be simple enough. The digital environment should be good enough, but at least they need to do certain things. But we're still not there. If you look at B2B in general, it's still super hard for customers, whether that has a blah, blah, blah technical reason or a blah, 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 okay, but let's only do this for small customers or SMB reason, or no, let's not do it at all because, yeah, this hurts the customer experience, right? Because we have these amazing CSMs, and if they no longer speak to our CSMs, the customer experience is no longer amazing. Or just in general, which I think is the explanation for probably all of those, is we're just afraid to lose control because we're so focused on, the end lagging metrics like churn and those kinds of things. We basically want to be on the ball all the time, and having people do stuff themselves or sending them to a digital environment where there's no CSM to actually have the conversation basically makes us afraid. So at Insighted, and I think also a lot of other companies currently in B2B, that basically signifies the old to the new game. And that also means that we need to change how we do things. So, for example, instead of thinking that all customers need and want one-on-one contact, we need to embrace the fact that customers want to be self-sufficient and that they don't need your CSM for everything. Or instead of valuable content not reaching customers, we need to make sure that they can get content that they need whenever, wherever, and when especially they need it. And the most pivotal thing, I think, for most B2B companies is make sure that it's a good experience, right? Because currently, if you go to any probably B2B SaaS company's website, unless you're very lucky, you'll find that they'll have an LMS system or digital education. They'll probably have a community. They'll have a knowledge base. They'll have FAQs. They have basically everything that you need, but it's all over the place. It's everywhere. Sometimes there are multiple logins, etc. Basically not really inviting for someone to use. And a bunch of other points that I won't go over just in detail, but basically no more high touch, but digital-led engagement to scale high touch or scale human touch. So basically help your CSMs out by getting your customers to help themselves. I basically said fragmented online experience here to like a centralized customer hub or a centralized content hub. I quickly want to zoom into that because I think this basically hammers nails the point I'm trying to make. So what we're very good at in SaaS, I don't know if you guys can see my pointer, but I'm going around the right box, is we are very good at scaling the employee experience and making sure that we get everything out of our employees and that they basically have visibility everywhere and are super efficient. But what we're not very good at is making sure that our customers can actually do stuff. So this is what we mean with this solving the scale problem. You basically need to make sure that your employees get better, but you also need to make sure that your customers get better. Essentially, you're creating a first line of defense. I used this meme on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, thought it did well. So basically what you're doing is your digital CS, your digital CX, your just digital environment or digital experience or tech touch experience, whatever you want to call it, is your first line of defense for everything that follows in customer engagement after. Basically what I'm saying is that if you want to scale, you will need a digital strategy for all customers. And I highlighted all customers because that also means that it's not just for your SMB customers. And we see this is growing. So this is nice. We actually see this being picked up, whether it's digital customer success or tech touch or online CS or low touch or digital journeys, whatever. There's a lot of companies thinking about this now. There's a lot of tech being built to do this in a better way. Whatever you want to call it, there is a lot of stuff going on, but we still see also that a large part of that gets it wrong. So basically to signify what it should be or what it should not be, a digital strategy or a digital CS strategy in this case, it should basically be a data-driven thing, right? A data-driven methodology to basically create value for your customers at scale with the emphasis on value. You should be using a combination of tools and CSMs and process in order to facilitate a personalized customer experience. You can't do one of those. No, you need to do everything. And this also means that there will be situations where there will be little direct one-on-one contact, or maybe even no one-on-one contact with your customers, which you need to be comfortable with, right? Because you're getting a lot of data in return that will help you out. And what it definitely shouldn't be, what you see now, is a way of segmenting only lower ACV customers and saving money on customer success or support. This is a thing that's for everyone, for every customer, whether it's a $10 million paying enterprise account or a 2K paying SMB customer, doesn't really matter. This thing should be for everyone. It's also not a way to mass communicate regular stuff and regular messages and regular updates. What we often see is that a lot of companies are actually automating their, we call them vendor touch points. So basically the stuff that your company would already be doing in a high touch model, but then just automated in a digital way. It's also not a way to automate everything, by the way. It's not a new marketing channel either. And it's definitely not a replacement for CSMs or CXMs or marketers or whatever. No, it's a way to actually help them get more done and get more out of themselves and their job and their customers. So basically it's adding to, not replacing with. So if this is your typical customer journey as a SaaS company, what you're doing by adding a digital layer to solve your scale problem is you're adding extra touch points or extra possibilities for your CSMs and extra possibilities for your customers to do more with your product or your team or whatever you're selling. So that could be a digital layer where you're saying, hey, I'm adding one-to-many training modules, or I'm adding community-driven feedback, or I'm adding a video EBR instead of just a personal one. Doesn't really matter, but basically it's adding to. You're not actually replacing touch points that are digital. Plus, you get some new touch points to work with, right? So, for example, in your onboarding phase, you can already start inviting people to your online community, or in your adoption phase, you can actually make sure that people get badges for participating in online courses, which spurs other people to do the courses as well, but also make sure that people actually start leveraging the knowledge that they got from you and they got from the course. Or from an advocacy perspective, for example, they could receive points and swag based on helping other customers, those kinds of things. So it also opens up a whole different way of working and a new way to actually scale your team and what you're doing. So concluding, it's data and behavior driven. It's basically personalized experience for each individual customer. all the way. It's like a circular thing, right? To creating a network for them, providing self-service tools and customer support. I'm looking at the time very briefly, and engaging customers throughout the entire customer journey. So you're basically adding this whole thing that's behavior driven. But then what about the customer experience? What then happens? And yeah, newsflash, you need to put in some effort. This is the one thing that we usually see when people build out a digital strategy and then say it doesn't resonate. We're not seeing the engagement levels that we were looking for. We're not seeing enough feedback from customers or something like that. Now, yeah, true, because you need to put in the effort. That's also why I'm referencing the SDR emails. I don't know if there are SDRs on the call. If so, I do apologize. But most of the SDR emails that I get, there's no effort being put in to figure out who I am, who the company is, etc. And that's exactly the same thing that you also need to do in order to scale your digital experience and also scale the rest of, or be able to actually scale your teams. So also as an example, marketing works on segments, but CX works with people, right? So you're dealing with people. So also make sure that you know who they are and what they want and what they're looking for and through what channel. Basically, if you would give a frog a golden ring, it's still an ugly thing. I don't know if that's a saying in English. It definitely is in Dutch, where I'm from. But you need to make sure that the whole thing works and it's beautiful and it's definitely based on what your customers want and their behavior and their wishes and their needs. And then you also need to sell it to them. So you basically, if you're transitioning someone to a digital experience that is used to having a CSM before because you've just matured to the next phase of growth for your company, you need to sell that to them. You can't just go and say, hey, sorry, but we're taking away your CSM, because then you're actually punishing customers. So you need to find a way to make it seem like you're giving them choice and you're giving them freedom and you're basically asking for their preferences. I did a webinar with Brian from Looker once, and he basically called this graduating customers. So he actually went to their customers and said, look, you've been dealing with our CSMs for 2 years. We've taught you everything that we can. And to be honest, you're like an expert now. So we're going to graduate you to this digital experience because you're really good now. You don't need us anymore. And don't worry, we'll be here if you do. But for at least the period in time that you don't, you're now basically able to self-serve. And this is where everything is. So please go use this, which I think is a very beautiful way to actually do this. It's still also a cooperative thing, so you need to find out what they would like to use, and if they don't use it, then you need to find out why. I think this is a common thing for customer experience people, to be honest. This is not a new thing. And then also you need to make sure that there is a lot of internal alignment. So I'm basically going to go out on a limb here and say that if you want to build a digital experience because you're looking to scale out your teams or something, but you don't have internal alignment on what that means and what the campaigns actually do and which customer gets what campaign or which customer actually gets the digital experience, if not all customers, then it will just fail. Because internal alignment is super important, or else you're basically just creating more chaos. So you need ownership, you need goals, you need multiple stakeholders to be involved. And finally, you definitely need a centralized data and tech stack to have a full overview. And just to basically show you what we think that could look like, it's something like this, right? So for example, for us, it means that we have our customer success community or customer hub with like community and knowledge base, success centers, a bunch of learning stuff and integrations with learning partners, product feedback and updates, in-app support. But then that's also integrated and tied into a CRM, integrated and tied into a CS tool like Gainsight, learning management like Skilljar, advocacy tooling like Influitive or Qualtrics, and definitely also all of the one-on-one stuff that you've already been using, which is ticketing and chat and Zendesk and Slack and those kinds of things. So in order to do it well and actually scale your digital experience, it also needs to be connected to your technological experience or the offline experience there. Because your ability to actually leverage data there equals success. So adding new channels means you get more data. More data means you get more insights. And if you don't have that centralized, that will just go everywhere. You need to define leading and lagging metrics, probably per channel or per segment or per experiment. So basically, if you're seeing higher license utilization, can you directly correlate that to something? Is that correlated to retention? You need to basically tie those results to business acumen in order to also make sure that you're visible internally. And this scalable thing is actually on the mind of your leadership, trends, behavior, those kinds of things. And then finally, also, are your customers actually engaged? And I've put that as a last one because I think this is the one thing that it's the most important thing, but is also often forgotten, is, okay, we've built this digital thing, we've built all these channels, we've bought a community, everything's there. But are customers actually using it, and are they actually engaged, and is it what they want? I saw this really amazing talk from Nisha from Gong the other day, where she basically said that she interviewed a whole range of customers to make sure that these new digital channels that they're introducing, or a community that they're introducing, or something else, actually met their needs and met their requirements, which I think is actually the most important thing, and something that is often forgotten. Yeah, hope this helps. And I see that I took a little bit more time than I was planning.
That was an amazing presentation. So many points, so many things to write down, and I think I'm gonna rewatch this presentation one more time. Number one, to follow your sense of humor, and number two, just because you've dropped so many values.
So what do you think? Is scaling a company compared to is it comparable to marriage? I don't know.
You've made the point, so I am not in liberty to say otherwise.
So in my mind it is, but I'm not married, so I don't have like the actual experience. So
Got it.
I'll just claim this until someone says that it's not an analogy at all.
Got it. Hey, looks like we don't have any questions. My goodness. How about this? Remco, I'm gonna give you one question. What do you see majority of, or at least like, what do you think? Where do you think companies make biggest roadblocks? Like, what is the biggest roadblock you think that companies make with scaling? Like, if you were to summarize this into a couple of sentences.
Yeah, so I think two things. So, or maybe it's just one thing. So I think it's silos. So what you'll usually see when a SaaS company starts to grow really quickly is that teams start to decide things for themselves because they think they no longer have the time to actually convene with anyone else or another department within the company. So what then starts happening is that they start setting up processes that no longer consider other stakeholders. They start buying tools that are no longer connected to other tools that other teams are using. They start chasing goals that are no longer aligned with other team goals because they're basically using data that's also not aligned with other teams. So you start getting internal chaos, I guess, which is solvable and is explainable, but not to your customer, right? Because your customer basically is at the end of all of that and is definitely not benefiting. So I think that's the main thing.
That's a good one. We have one question: how to manage cross-selling and upselling with CS self-led approach?
Yeah, I like that. So be super clear about the value that companies are getting and also about the stuff that they're missing out on. So I think the main basis there is making sure that they know that they're using your product to the fullest of the capability. This is also where data and those things come in, where you need to show them what they're doing and how it's actually tied to their goals and their results, and how it maybe is benchmarked to other customers, so that they at least get a feel for, hey, we're doing well, or we're doing well, but we're missing out. You need to sell it a little, obviously. But then also through a digital-led experience, it's super possible to make clear that certain things, certain use cases, certain new features, for example, are features that they should be using because you know so much about their account, right? They've been a customer maybe for a year or 2 years even, and you should know what drives their business and how they're using your product and how much value they've gotten from it. So a cross-sell there should also be easy with basically, and and this is not the nicest way to do it, but basically sending them an email and saying, hey, we just released this new feature and we know this is exactly for you because reason. Here you go. I think that shouldn't be amazingly difficult unless you have a very
Awesome.
technical product.
Got it. And we are right at our time. Remco, thank you so much. It was amazing to chat with you. So
welcome.
much value.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it. It's super fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And everyone,
feel free to email me if there's any other questions. I put the email on the screen. Happy to answer any.
Thank you. And everyone, we will see you in the next session.
Okie doke. Bye.